So now that we got our channels set up on our vehicle and with our controls for roughness and our colors, let's go ahead and start including these into our weathering generator here. So let's plug in the channels that we know what we have. We do have our diffuse, we have normals, we have metallics, and we also have our roughness. So real quick, just bring in our normal. Let's bring in our base color, or diffuse, excuse me. Let's bring in our ambient let's bring in our roughness, and let's drag in from down here our blue channel, our metallics. So let's bring those into our outputs, our diffuse. Let's bring our normal in. Let's bring our roughness, and let's bring in the metallic. Okay, so now from here we also need to include the output channels that we don't have. So for output channels, this is what is going to be read in Unreal Engine when you bring those in. And for that, let's bring in a frame. So let's add a frame, and I want to call this output to UE4. I'm going to bring this frame down just a bit so I can add a little bit more space to the next output I need to add. So let's add an output for our ambient occlusion, since we know that's actually going to be pretty important to read within the engine itself. So I can right click, I can add a node, and I can come down to output, and it'll add in a new output. So let's bring that underneath our metallic map, and then our output we can double click, and it's going to need a usage. So in our output attributes, go to usage, and let's add an item. Within the item that's going to be added, we don't need a diffuse, but we need the ambient occlusion. So we can bring that down, select our ambient occlusion, and now it'll be needing an input for the ambient occlusion maps. So let's drag our generator down from ambient occlusion and plug that in. It'll convert this to a grayscale map. We don't have any information showing up yet because we don't have any ambient occlusion maps, nor do we have any world normal space. So the next part to fill in the inputs that we need is we need to bake out those different generation maps from our model. So we can right click on our model in our resources folder, and we can bake model information. So there's already been some resources added, so I'm just going to get rid of these, and let's go ahead, and then this is what it gives you in the beginning. This shows you your scene objects. It gives you your object you want to bake. It gives you the material channels that you have, how many polygonal faces are on those material channels. It has the shaders in which you want to bake out, and it has the directory in which you're going to be saving the type of file that's going to be saved out as targets or anything else you want to bake, and the additional information for the model, for the information you're going to be baking. So in bakers, we know we need a normal world space for information for the procedural to generate off of, and we also know we need ambient occlusion. So we can add in our ambient occlusion, which we can then change our parameters to quality. Let's change that to high. And I know we want our output sizes to be 2048s. Our directory, we can save that. You can choose the directory in which to save it to again. I already have it saving out to my image folder. And you can change out the name type, the name database, the name structure of it. So when this gets baked out, it'll be proxy car underscore ambient underscore occlusion, which is fine. And we also need to add in our world space normals, which is down at the bottom. I overlooked it, excuse me. And this should be fine for our output size, and it also inherited our directory. So now if we bake out that information, take just a second, our proxy car resources folder now has a new folder added to it. This is the maps that we had just got done baking. So let me shift select those, bring those into the viewport, and now we can start previewing it. Immediately I can already tell there is a problem. That problem is that both the material channels got baked onto the same UV map. This is why that's why there's giant white blotch spaces. It's even more visible within the world space normals. these are actually the windows that were added on the UV space. Remember earlier our model had this separated into a new material channel, so we need to rebake this information. So again, we can go right click on our object, bake model information, and we can keep the same settings. All we need to do is we need to go to our scene setup, and we need to disable the channel information that we don't want to bake. So we know that the object that has the most polygons is going to be the material that's applied to the car. We want this. It's that Lambert that we don't want because that's those windows. So if we disable this and we go OK to bake that information again, our maps will automatically be updated, saving over the original maps that we had problems with. So if you don't want to do that, you can always change out the names and it'll correct those for you. So our information looks like it baked in pretty well just for a low res object that we have for our world normals. And now we have an ambient occlusion map as well. So the ambient occlusion map came in pretty well for 2048. There's also a different method to be able to bake out your ambient occlusion maps. These are the pipes that overrun the outlets over here. So we're going to see some dark spaces next to the wheel well. There's a method in which you can actually bake this out by giving different material different names to different parts of the object, so you don't have to see it. An Algorithmic's website, Algorithmic's YouTube channel, they have information on how to do this. For this, I'm just running you through a really quick setup on how to get generations going on your models. So now that we have these two maps baked out, we can now apply these to our generator. So let's grab our ambient occlusion. Let's plug that into both of those ambient occlusion spots. And we need our world normal. Let's bring our world normal in. Let's bring that right on in. So now it actually has a direction in which to bake the normal information from. You notice our car changed a little bit color, and the roof looks a little bit more, it has like a little bit more information on it because this generator is already taking it into effect. So let's bring those down out of the way. And all right, so from here we can start messing around with the actual mass generators, see a little bit more effects that are going on with our car. So if I double click on the base color output, I can start seeing these effects not only on the diffuse color but also on the car model itself. It's going to be reading the world normals to generate this the wear and tear on this car. So we double click on the metal weathering node, we can change out the output sizes. We can then also affect the different types of effects that are happening on our car. So let's say we want more dust on our top of our vehicle. We can increase our dust. It's going to take just a minute for everything to update. And you notice that dust begins to procedurally generate on top of the vehicle. We can include edge wearing. Let's include some of that. And based on our world normal, it's going to generate edge wearing where it can on the model pieces. And let's make it dirty too. And you really see that it gathers up on certain parts of the car. Again, you can specify this stuff and get a lot more specifics onto what you want to generate on your models based on how you built them and how you also generate different maps. Again, this is a really quick run through, so I'm not trying to be specific on a lot of things. But at least we know that this generation system is beginning to work. So from here, I'm going to bring all this back down. All right, now we're back to what we had as our default setup. Oh, and you can also change color too while you have all this applied. So with the, let's bring that rust back in again to make it real obvious. Dirt, edge wearing, and dirtiness. Okay. So as dirty as this vehicle is, we can still go into our parameter up here and we can change our color and everything will still update on the fly again. So from here we have the generator set up, we have all the additional maps that we need baked out. So the next video we will go ahead and start assigning our different parameters we want to expose for when we save out this node network and have control over those in Unreal Engine 4 when we bring this model in. So we'll stop the video there and then we'll begin making some exposures to this node graph.